Well, I think it probably originally started when he was about 16 and somebody got him into smoking pot. It's always somebody else's boy that gets your boy in, isn't it? And I think it just sort of, I think he did, between that and the time he died, he certainly tried, I think, every drug that was probably around at the time. He was in with a group of boys and they thought this was great fun. This all came out when he had the first, what was the psychotic episode, and he had to go to the hospital. And the psychiatrist came and he wanted me in the interview, and the psychiatrist was happy to agree to that. I didn't see anything, but I listened, and boy did I learn a lot that first interview with this doctor. Because he was so young, they didn't have him in hospital. They just treated him. No sign of suicide at that moment. He was just treated as an outpatient, and the first attempt at suicide was after he was 18. He seemed to have he'd gone off the drugs, we'd moved, but he was still quite paranoid occasionally. It definitely had affected his mind and his ability to go out and look for a job. I had a lot of trouble. The first attempt at suicide, he tried to copy a friend who'd suicided a couple of years previously, what he'd done, and he tried to sort of do the tube with the gas in the car. It didn't work. In 1995, they had all these suicide attempts. It was all like over a period of 6 months. We couldn't believe that he'd actually done it. He'd never talked about suicide. He was actually, by that time his father and I had separated, and he was actually at his father's for the weekend when the first attempt happened. He got out of hospital, and the second attempt was at my house. Not long afterwards, he swallowed mercurochrome, and it really should have gone through. You'd think he would have known to have gone through everything that might be a problem. And got him to hospital. He was quite ill that time. He had clots on his lungs, and there was a big mix-up after the first hospital admission about follow-up, and it took me a long time to get a psychiatrist for him to go to see. It just seemed to go from one to the other to the other. He talked to me, he felt, I kept saying, look, you'll be all right in hospital. The hospitals kept saying, oh, look, if he's going to suicide, he'll do it while he's in here. And I said, no, he feels safe in hospital. He had this fixation the police were going to kill him. He'd had an incident with the police, and he'd actually had what had happened in the days when he was supplying some pot to his friends. This guy hadn't paid him, so he'd gone and stolen something from this guy's house, and he ended up in police custody prior to his court case, and he slashed all his wrists with crockery, plastic crockery that he'd broken, and they took him to an area. It was just outside Dandenong, and they took him in a van. Now, he knew the area because he'd been there before, and it was the countryside, and he genuinely thought they were taking him out to the countryside to kill him. They were actually taking him to a doctor's surgery. He didn't know that. They didn't say where they were going, and he really thought, I remember him telling me this quite vividly. He was absolutely petrified. He thought they were just going to kill him and dump his body because he'd been so bad. I can remember him saying they had him in handcuffs, and it turned out it would be a doctor who was holding a baby clinic. And he quite genuinely said to me, Mum, there I was in handcuffs, just as if I was a criminal getting taken through with all these mothers and babies. I felt terrible. I would say I understood because I had been through a similar situation. let them know right away that you understand because you've lost a child. You don't need to necessarily go into details. If it was a suicide, you would say, yes, my son suicided too. I can understand how you're feeling. I would encourage the person to try and talk about it, because that's all they want. They want to mention their child's name. They want to talk. The relatives and friends who don't ask, that happens quite quickly afterwards, really. And then you're suddenly left with no one you want to talk to about your boy. I would tell them that the grief journey is long. It could be anything from 2 to 5 years before they start to feel any sense of they're living again. It took me 5 years, I think, till I felt a sense of peace about what had happened to him. It was a feeling inside me, and I just describe it as a sense of peace for me. There was no particular incident that triggered it. It's just time. And of course, if they're in their early grief, yes, you try to give them as much help and information and places they can go to find out, because they're full of questions to begin with. And later on they just want to talk and share and have similar journeys. To know that someone else has been through something exactly what they have been through is a great help, because I found that when I talked to other people, parents who had lost a child through suicide. As they talk around the group, there's all the similarities are quite amazing. The experiences we've all had with our children, and that can give you a lot of comfort to know there's people that have been through the same thing, and your boy wasn't a weirdo or wasn't strange. He was he was your son or your daughter, and he loved us. He did. I found a poem he wrote way after he died, and it was just about how he loved his family. He made this up, and yeah, and he got me into music. Leonard Cohen. He found out about that in hospital, and he listened to that a lot. He taught me a lot. He taught me a lot after he died, which was very comforting when thinking about it.